What I think we don't really understand is when we talk about vision, we think it's like a camera. I'm looking into the lens of a camera, and and it's being recorded digitally. So everything that the camera sees is what you get. But the brain isn't like that. And you guys are pretty familiar with YouTube, and I encourage you to go to just type in change blindness and look at the little YouTube video that pops up. And what pops up there in many of them is that there's a group of people watching sort of like a basketball game, and what their goal is to watch and count the number of passes that take place on the court. And so there's a white ball being passed around. But what they don't know, and I probably shouldn't tell you because then you will see it, what they don't know is a guy in a gorilla suit runs across the court in the middle of this thing that you're counting these passes, and nobody notices it. And you can only notice it if you're told in advance, and that's because it's your brain that tells you what you're seeing. It's not your eyes, it's not like a camera. There's a lot of complicated anatomy that's involved in how we see, but it's all about the brain. The eye helps, of course, but what you might not know is that the retina, which is the part of the eye that sees, is actually a part of the brain. In the beginning, the retina grows out of the brain. And so the part of the eye that sees is a part of the brain to begin with. And I'm going to go to the board and draw a little diagram for you about the anatomy. So the way the brain and the eye work is that you have cells, and these cells are called neurons, and the neurons have a long process. And what do I mean by that? If you look at a tree, for example, the tree has roots, and a tree has a trunk, and then a tree has lots of branches. Well, neurons are very similar to a tree. They have a long trunk, and they have branches at both ends. One end receives information, like from the outside world, and another sends information to the next cell. So let's draw some neurons on the board. So in the eye, I'm going to draw an eyeball here. Okay, so here's your eyeball. There are things in the eye that help you see, like your lens. At the back are bunches of cells, and they're very small. But if you took this piece and just blew it up, you might see a cell that is going to send its trunk or process to the brain. And it sends it out a long way, and it gets to a part of the brain, and there it makes a connection with another cell. And this part of the brain has a complicated name, and I'll just give it letters. L, G, N. They stand for something, but it's not important. You could name it anything you want. So this is in the brain. And this cell in the brain goes to another part of the brain where it connects to other cells. And this I'll call visual cortex. Cortex occupies most of our brain, and probably the cortex gets really big in human beings because a lot of it's involved in remembering stuff from before and comparing it to what's happening now. So we have a big area to remember lots and lots of stuff, and the stuff we remember helps us understand what we are seeing, the meaning of what we're seeing. So visual cortex is complicated, and so there are many steps. So this would be a synapse, and then there are lots of cells. You can imagine lots of cells going on. And then at the end of this whole big chain, you see a face.